Good morning, we are Smooth 98.1 FM. Welcome to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM. It's going 29 minutes before it is 8 o'clock. It is a Friday, 24th November. Looks like a fine place for people to switch their locations if they find themselves in some parts of the world, in the capital of the nation. And then they have some other persons who they only see virtually once, probably on a Friday. Might look like a good place for them to have a reunion and then send us a selfie. With that, I say good morning to AB Bozimo. Did that shot hit any of you? I want to know if it's you I'm talking about.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
It's great to be here in Joseph City, Abuja.
Okay.
Came in for a function. Nice to see you guys.
All right. And good morning, Joseph Obari.
Good morning, everybody. Amashaye Ebi, you're welcome to Abuja, and welcome all our listeners to this show this morning. Thank you very much.
It's awesome to be hosting two of the analysts in the city of Abuja. And, well, Joseph is your guest. So, well, I guess you will take care of him. So let's get into pick up the papers this morning now. I would like the listener to know we like the essay. We value it a great deal reacting to the headlines this morning. If they send messages to the WhatsApp platform on 0809-444-0981, we'll get to read them after now. So let's pick up the pace with this story from the Premium Times. Joseph, this paper, this headline is for you. And it's coming saying, Appeal Court affirms election of Sule as Nasarawa's governor. And that's what it is saying. Is this the final judgment? Are we likely to see the movement to the Supreme Court to decide it?
Of course, the appeals and governorship elections can go up to the Supreme Court, as we have seen before in some cases. If the governors feel, the candidates, or they feel that they want to challenge the decision. But the significant thing here is that this was a judgment. Is this a judgment that has followed the outcome of the governorship election tribunal in Lafayette, which tried to set aside the victory of the state governor, Sule, following the petition by the Ombu Gabdu, the PDP candidate who challenged that victory. This judgment in particular is based mainly on technicalities, because the Court of Appeal believed that the petition, Ambu Gadu's petition, was filed out of time. There is a stipulation by law that you are supposed to file your petition within 21 days, and that somehow, I don't know how the PDP candidate got to meet that, or his counsel missed that point, and they had to file the petition out of time. We've known that there have been issues around getting evidence from INEC and all those kind of issues. Maybe they were caught in that trap also. And then the Court of Appeal also dismissed the allegation that there was overvoting against the governor, and also used that. There was also the issue of jurisdiction, because the tribunal's jurisdiction was questioned, was challenged, and the Court of Appeal believed that they didn't have jurisdiction to entertain the petition, which to me is quite curious, because, I mean, the tribunal originally is meant to hear petitions around elections. But because it's filed out of time, I think that's the basis upon which the jurisdiction of a court of the tribunal was being challenged. And in law, that's one first thing any court must determine. A court must determine whether it has jurisdiction. Once your jurisdiction is not valid, then every other thing you're doing is in futility. So we wait to see how this goes on, and how it pans into the activities at the Supreme Court, because I think the PDP candidate might want to challenge the Court of Appeal decision.
All right, so that leads us to drift away to AB Bozimo this morning. AB, help us make sense of this headline coming from the Guardian newspaper, where it states Nigeria loses 1.2 trillion naira to industrial scale oil theft. That's quoting the Speaker of the House of Representatives. You'd have to unmute. You need to unmute. We can't hear you.
Good morning. Forgive me. This kind of headline seems to come periodically whenever there's a headline to be made in the papers and attention is sought. 1.29, essentially 1.3 trillion naira is lost, according to them, due to industrial scale oil theft. So who are the players? Who are the stakeholders? Who are those who can actually go ahead and actually get this kind of amount of illegal substance away from the country's coffers and seem to get away with it year in, year out? First, let us contextualize this. 1.29 trillion is lost to theft. Our health budget for 2023 is 1.1 trillion. Our education budget is 1.0 trillion. So we're losing essentially the entirety of either our health or education budget according to industrial scale oil theft. I cannot be persuaded that this is chance or a coincidence or is not happening with some active support. There is no context on the surface of planet Earth where even 10 naira is removed from my pocket and I don't question it. How can I hear of 1 point something trillion naira and I'm just making announcements about it? This goes to the heart of what our security agencies are supposed to be doing. How do you say you wake up in the morning, you're in uniform? In many cases, unfortunately, they're diverted from doing what they're supposed to do and they're harassing citizens in some cases. So we have to go to the heart of the matter. Where are our security forces? You cannot connect all those hundreds of pipes to our pressurized pipelines without detection. Yet you find people telling us you have 59 connections to a pipeline. That is really industrial scale because it takes welding equipment, it takes lifting equipment, it takes men, money, materials to connect and steal like that. You cannot simply do that under cover. So the speaker is announcing
ghosts don't do this kind, and ghosts do not wed and steal oil from the way it looks like.
It's only in Africa that ghosts drink alcohol at every traditional ceremony. But ghosts too are not known to take oil and do anything. The oil would stain their white.
Okay.
So there has to be some form of collusion. I'm sorry.
All right.
The critical question is that who has the fund to do these businesses? Who
That's also true.
Have got the funds to fund this illegal business at the so-called industrial scale. It is only those who have got money who can do those kind of things, who can assemble crews, sometimes even foreigners are involved in this. They recruit them and they fund them, and again they buy a badge. The badge is a huge thing,
investment.
So to buy a scale of something of that scale is not a child's play. So some people who've got funds are those who are behind this. And we know some people have got free funds. They're using it, simply.
Interestingly, thanks for the submission, Joseph Obari. And interestingly, we look forward to someday reading your memoir or probably something, because we know, you speak as someone who had an insight because you were a major player in the oil and for granted.
Yeah, one day we have to.
Thank you very much.
It's a service.
So help us understand this one from the Vanguard newspaper, where Nigeria is set to maybe evacuate refugees displaced by Boko Haram from neighboring countries. Is it safe to bring them back home now?
And that's the major question: is how much how prepared are we? In fact, as far as I'm concerned, Nigeria has failed its citizens in this regard. You have over about 3 million persons displaced, internally displaced, almost 500,000 of them stranded out in neighboring countries of Niger, Chad, and Cameroon, and uprooted from their home state. And the government is simply just contented with creating IDP camps here and there, which are poorly funded, poorly organized, and so on. So it's a concern that people and Nigerians can be so stranded and helpless, losing everything they have. They have no means of economic survival in whatever form. And all we are told is that, okay, they are closing the IDPs and all that. But how much support are they getting? And the critical question you asked, is there security? Is it just enough to close down the IDPs, move people to their homes, and then they get chased again? How much security do we have? Or are we supposed to believe the national security advisor or minister or whatever that says that as far as is concerned, security has improved tremendously in the country, and that should be enough for us, according to Ribadu. But on what we feel, what we see, what we hear, and what we read every day is that insecurity is still a big problem, especially in the northeast and the northwest of this country.
I understand AB has got something to chip in.
You know, you say you want to return people to what kind of environment? In many cases, we heard of arson, we heard of, murder at the times when people fled for their very dear lives. Have we recreated and improved the conditions that they had to flee from? Or are we just trying to act to show, as they say, show working, without properly thinking of the implications? People's children have been out of normal school schedules. Adults are not able to handle themselves to make a livelihood. They are getting along very poorly wherever they are, because an IDP camp is not a place you want to be. And you now want to return them. Have we addressed the destruction and damage that happened? And then most importantly, like Joseph said, have we addressed the security concerns that drove them in the first place? If we haven't answered those questions, one might suggest it may be premature to move them back.
All right, this is where we also return to the listener at this time to know that we like to get the response coming into the headlines on Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1 on the phone line as WhatsApp message 0809-444-0981. Once again, 0809-444-0981. Love to read the messages in a bit. And let's also go over now to get AB to help us is telling the federal government. But we've heard this over and over again. Why does it seem like it doesn't permeate the eardrums of those in authority?
You know, yesterday on my trip, I was talking with a fellow traveler, and we commented about how at one time in this country, you were going to school, and side by side with you were the children of very important personalities, the ministers, the top security officials. They were eating gari with you, in your secondary school and all that. We've heard this thing for a long time, but sadly, it's gone negative. The teachers are making a very important point, and I made reference to it. We're losing that amount that could go into our education sector, or be divided into our education and health sector and other sectors that are very much in need. They had a conference. They said redirecting the focus of education stakeholders towards modern process of producing competent, dedicated, and professional teachers in Nigeria. I wonder what the state of our teachers training colleges would be right now. Teaching is a very unique act. Let me tell you from experience that there are people who know the material, but are unable to convey it. Being taught to teach is an art in itself, because teachers typically meet students of all types: the gregarious, the recalcitrant, the loudmouth, the quiet, hard learner, and teaching to all of them is what makes a teacher distinct from even a future practitioner. If you are not putting the resources into training teachers, you are ultimately creating a poorer environment where people are not going to be able to yield the results that God has given them. So they're saying it's not permeating now, I think, because a lot of people especially in the classes of those who would make that money available, have decided to send their children out of the country. And so they don't have any sensitivity. If a minister of education's child was in a secondary school with me, I think he or she will be more conscious of what is going on there. But if in many cases they are no longer there, it's almost like they don't care anymore. And that's most unfortunate.
Thank you so much. Let's go over now to Joseph. Joseph, this one staring you is from the Tribune newspaper, and it states that federal government reassures paramilitary agencies of upward review of review of their salary. That's what it is stating. So again, it's in every segment or sector, everyone needs an increase of something from the budget. Speak to this headline.
Well, I think that the paramilitary organizations in Nigeria have always had a short end of the stick as far as welfare is concerned, because if you compare them to their colleagues in the military proper, and you're talking about the Army, Air Force, and the Navy, who seem to be pampered by the democratic government. You just need to interface with these agencies of government, particularly the armed forces, and you see that they are actually giving them money to be able to live. And in fact, the budgetary allocation to defense tells you a whole lot. There's no other sector that competes with it. Closest may be education, which is even under, it's still subpar. So it is only fair to begin to look into the welfare of these other people that perform very, very essential services to the country in terms of security as well. Because when you talk about immigration, it's tied to security, because you're talking about movement of people in and out of the country. You talk about customs, for example, it is route through which goods and products can come into the country. Some of them can be injurious to people's lives and can also be linked to security, because sometimes arms are moved through the borders and customs are there to check that. And you talk about the civil defense, for example, which is like complementary to the work the police is doing. All these people have not really been treated with the kind of respect they deserve in terms of their welfare. Their locations to them, and then their accommodation and all that. So it's proper to say that it's not, if we go beyond just saying it, let us actually see that it is happening. And I say the Nigerian story is simply like the story of a man who is believed to be rich, but he spends his time, he goes to pleasure hunts, spends lavishly, buys drink for everybody at the beer parlor. His children don't have clothes on their back, their school fees are not paid. So it's just a case of misplaced priority. So we look at the politicians living in affluence, pampering themselves, but the people who are doing the essential things are not taken care of. So let it not just be lip service. We are hearing, we will take care of you, but it doesn't translate to any real action at the end of the day.
Now, listening to your final submission would remind me of that piece of poem written by one of these East African back in the days, Building the Nation. The permanent secretary and the driver, both of them attended the function. As they went home, the permanent secretary was yawning out of being overfed, but then the driver was yawning because
yawning out of hunger.
So it just resonates that for me. But let's go to AB and still talk money matters this morning. AB, now you are the one who've moved from point A to probably point Abuja as we speak right now. So you should be able to help us understand this and see what you got on the road. The Punch newspaper is what you're looking at, and it speaks here saying the Naira scarcity hits Kano, Sokoto, Edo, and others. Now, this is coming on the back of even a circular issued by the central bank. And here we are, even the court also ruled recently. We were expecting the court ruling on this, but walk us through this. Where is the Naira going to?
Well, I think at the core of this is a great deal of mistrust of the ordinary population for the government, because the government has been at pains to say the two notes will work side by side. The government has made, as you said, issue circulars. I'm not sure, I stand to be corrected, but Has the government even approached the Supreme Court to address or set aside their ruling? So the government has been doing all this, but the sad experience that people went through earlier this year has made a lot of people leery of what government says or stands for. I think we really have very little choice. If government says the two notes subsist, we are not in a position to question. But it's like whenever they say, don't do panic buying of fuel, I have never seen a person who woke up in the morning and said, I'm panicked, I want to go and buy fuel. Clearly, when they suspect that there's not enough fuel, they tend to go and quote unquote panic buy. Nobody is panicking to buy fuel. They are being proactive. Similarly, nobody is panic stocking notes. They are thinking they're being proactive. At the end of it, it takes a lot to restore the lost trust of the citizens in government statements. And that, I think, is where it is. So government has to do more. They have started, but they need to go on and on, reassuring the populace that all notes matter and all will remain valid.
I just want to chip in a little here. And the point is that I think that banks in Nigeria are not helping the economy. Some bank workers, managers, and so on actually collude with some people and trade in Naira notes. There are people who get chunks of Naira notes delivered to them in their homes or in their businesses with the connivance of bank managers. And so this so-called scarcity happens, yes, just like B has rightly said, people panic because during Christmas period like this, politicians are known to carry cash. And those who want to spend cash, they go to the bank and arrange for this cash. I've never gone to any ATM and then got fresh Naira notes, even though when they have been printed. All the notes I get are shabby, dirty looking, and so on, even the old 1,000 Naira notes. Go to and I asked the bankers, and they said, well, we don't know what is going on, you know? So the CBN blames banks and those who are trading in currency notes, and then the banks blame the central bank. In the middle, we are the grass that suffer. So it is quite unfair that this kind of situation is happening. We spent billions of naira printing new notes, but we don't see them. It's in the hands of few people. I don't know how many of the new notes you see in circulation. So there are critical questions to be asked about the whole operations of the central bank and because when they blame the banks, I laugh because they're the supervisory authority over banks. So if the banks are not behaving well, there should be sanctions, and we are not seeing any sanctions. So it's funny.
All right. Thank you so much, Joseph and AB, for the submission, helping to understand why there seemed to be scarcity of the Naira and in some of the states you've mentioned, and let's hope the authorities react and nip it in the bud. So, Joseph, quickly help us sum this story up. That's in your neighbors now. That's the confluence state, Kogi. It says it's coming from the Daily Trust newspaper. Kogi Governorship Tribunal begins sitting on Saturday. Talk us through what are we likely to see when they sit.
Well, it's apart from saying this story is like, so what? Yeah, the tribunal is going to say, so what? You know, but the Kogi election, governorship election, threw quite a lot of drama, and what we saw happen in that place, in terms of the kind of allegations that were made, visuals that were shown, mutilated result sheets, and all kinds of things. We like to see how this plays out at the tribunal level, and that's actually where every focus is going to be, because some of the things that were revealed after the election were quite frightening to say. Of course, let's not talk about the drama of who actually won the election. Was it the candidate or the incumbent governor that won the election in Kogi? But that's on somebody's side.
Are you looking at the process of blessing of the certificate of return?
Yes, on the certificate and all of that. Because Kogi actually holds some good drama for us. Okay. And I'm sure every eye is to be riveted on the tribunal to see what comes out there. But there are precedents The challenges of proving electoral offenses and crimes have been played out in most tribunals, and we've seen the way the tribunals have related to admission of evidence and so on. And that for lawyers like us, we are concerned about the interpretation of the Electoral Act as far as election matters go. Honestly.
Thank you so much. So let's quickly race down now to pick up the messages now waiting for us. I've got Dan Okudwa, who comes in from Igondo, a regular. The oil theft in Nigeria is perpetrated by the high and mighty in society. It is coordinated by a well-organized syndicate. It can be stopped if the federal government have the political will. That's Barrister Dan Okudwa from Igondo. Ajayi Olonilua leaves us a message here, says, but how is it possible to lose such huge sum of money to oil theft and the government is just making a casual announcement of it without any concrete measure to stop the bleeding? God help us. Ajayi Olonilua's message I just read. And then Chidima comes up from Yaba with this message. It says, isn't it ironic how the bandits that displace people in the north have mostly likely been rehabilitated, set free and empowered with tools to supposedly aid revenue generation and add value to the economy, while the families impacted by their actions are still living under the deplorable conditions as to relocate away from the IDP camps without addressing the causal factor, this animal farm called a country. Moving on, Deji leaves us a message here which it says, the Nigerian government is not a problem-solving entity. They can identify issues and problems, but
no solutions.
Problem. Fuel and oil being smuggled out of the country is not a known fact, but has never been, is a known fact, but has never been any prosecution of these cabals or cartel. The common man will always pay for the crimes of the elite. And our final message here. Emeka Onelum comes up from Amuwo. It says, what happened to the former militants who were given the contracts to protect the oil pipeline? That's a question hanging in the air. As I want to say big thank you to both gentlemen. Joseph Obari, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, sir.
And A.B. Bozimo, who's, well, you would regale us with the tale of Joseph's hospitality when next we meet. Enjoy your stay in Abuja. But before you go, you left us with a quotable quote. And that is, can I refer this to you when you say, being taught how to teach is an act? Is that A.B.'s quote? Can we
definitely?
All right.
That's the teacher's
yes.
son.
I'm a child of two teachers. So
thank you so much.
Agree, disagree, hit me up at AB Bozimo on all platforms.
Joseph?
Great time talking here, and we are here. We are always glad to have you, and thanks for your contributions.
All right, my name is Omatseye Atsenuwa. That's the size of Freshly Pressed on Friday, and join me at 8:15 for the locker room. Stay tuned.
The headlines.
Guys,
the
thanks
stories.
so much.